How is everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Banker Next Door. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at a new standard called ISO 20022. I wish there was, I'm probably just going to call it ISO. I wish there was an easier way to say that. But we're going to look specifically at two different articles on this. We're going to look at an article from Independent Banker magazine, and we're also going to look at a blog post from the PCBB on this particular topic. Now, why is this a big thing? Well, the pushback for the implementation for ISO was just pushed back to July of this year, kind of giving banks a little bit more time to comply with this. So we're going to get into a little of the ins and outs of this new ISO criteria, like what is it? Why should banks do it? How is this going to help banks and their customers in terms of a lot of this has to do with payment and data channels, data flow. How the data flows, and particularly also helping out the payment sector, how payments flow and all that kind of thing. So let's jump into this. Let's look at the first article here. So this is called Countdown to ISO 20022, Key Steps for Community Banks to Ensure a Smooth Fedwire Transition. So with the Federal Reserve rescheduling until July 14th, the Fedwire Funds Services conversion to the new ISO 20022 message format, community banks have 4 extra months to ensure they are ready. Fortunately, there are a variety of resources available to help ensure a successful transition. So what is this ISO standard? So the ISO 20022 is a global standard for financial messaging that allows for the exchange of consistent payment data across the financial industry. Industry support for the adoption of ISO dates to 2013, when key industry players, including the Federal Reserve, the Clearinghouse, NACHA, my favorite acronym to say, by the way, NACHA, and other industry groups decided to support the adoption of the standard. The ISO standard is an XML language that allows for interoperability between financial institutions, their market infrastructure, and end users. Currently, Fedwire uses a proprietary format. Under ISO, the same terms and fields will be used for debtors, creditors, debtor agents, and instructed agents across all payment rails systems. As more systems start to convert to the ISO format, there will be more consistency across platforms. Anyone with basic bank operations experience knows the variations of name formatting and can imagine the efficiencies gained when data elements such as name and addresses are structured consistently across platforms. Now it gets into converting payment systems to the new ISO standard. So the ISO format isn't new to banks. FedNow, the instant payment system launched over 18 months ago, is in the ISO format. Meanwhile, CHIPS, the private sector counterpart to Fedwire used by large banks, converted in April 2024 in a one-day conversion. Banks connect to Fedwire by either Fedline Direct or Fedline Advantage. And the Federal Reserve Services, the FRB services, has reported in a public dashboard that its systems are on track for the transition. The transition follows the Fed's retirement of the Fedwire Funds offline service on February 14th. That service, which allows customers without an electronic connection to the Fedwire Funds service to call the Fed to send and receive their messages, was discontinued due to declining interest. Now, one thing I would like to point out, while the FedNow service has launched and it's been 18 months, it's still not perfect. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done with FedNow, and you've got about 700 or 800 banks in the country right now are basically I'll use the word experimenting with FedNow, and they have got it kind of working or are in the process of working. So, the one concern I have here with this is that, you're not in a situation where it's not like every bank in the country is using FedNow and that the FedNow service is basically all set up and ready to go. There's still a lot of issues with FedNow, and you don't even have a third of the banks in the country, using the service yet. So, and the ones that are using it are probably not using it to the fullest at this point. So again, just some concern there with that. Now let's get into, but it says, peer testing ahead of the transition. So the Fed is offering peer testing for banks, and encouraging broad participation. Peer testing allows participants to exchange ISO text messages in the DIT2 environment before the migration. All Fedwire customers are now able to mimic sending production-like traffic in the ISO message format on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Participants also may join a peer testing list managed by the Fed to test sending ISO messages at other dates and times. Additional community bank considerations. In addition to peer testing and reviewing project plans with technology partners, other considerations for community banks include scheduling staff training ahead of the transition, reviewing business continuity plans, and ensuring documentation reflects changes to the Fedwire. And then finally, we get into some available resources. So as community banks get down to the wire, take advantage of all the resources available. FRB Services offers videos, checklists, frequently asked questions, and more on its webpage dedicated to the transition, as well as on its central Fedwire Funds service page. Further, community banks should check with their core processors and other technology providers for their specific support. While the ISO transition presents a near-term challenge for many community banks, ultimately, it will provide efficiencies that will support back-office operations. The need to have a staff Rosetta Stone, if you will, who translates the various systems' names and fields across different systems is going away, offering some relief to help community banks continue to thrive. So, and this article was written, by the way, by Carrie Mitchum, who is a vice president and in charge of payment policy for the Independent Community Bankers of America, or the ICBA. So again, good article here. A lot of good resources there at the end of the page. You know, FRB Services, again, offering videos and checklists and frequently asked questions. You could go to the website there that they have, as well as the Fedwire Funds service page. So I think some good resources there for people to go look at if they need to look at this. Again, the kind of the peer testing, and then additional things community banks should be looking at in terms of preparing for this. But now let's switch up for just a second, because there's some other good things here in this PCBB article here. So let's go down. So this basically starts out by saying, and I'm sorry, I should say, so this is titled ISO 20022 Transition Extended, How to Take Advantage. So now it starts off, but why does the ISO matter? So the ISO is a global messaging standard designed to improve payment efficiency, regulatory compliance, and data transparency. By enabling richer, more structured payment data, it enhances transaction accuracy, strengthens fraud detection, and improves interoperability across financial networks. Many major financial institutions worldwide are already adopting ISO. CFIs, basically banks that prepare proactively, will be better positioned for compliance, operational efficiencies, and future payment innovations. And they do offer, for additional background, they have a frequently asked questions, and they actually have also a white paper on the topic. I might examine or look at that white paper in a separate episode. How CFIs can use the extended timeline. So you have this 4-month extension, and it's just about meeting a deadline. It's a chance to fine-tune implementation plans and fully leverage the benefits of the ISO. Taking a structured approach now will help ensure a smoother transition, you would hope. But then it goes into assessing system readiness and vendor coordination. So a successful transition starts with ensuring that core systems, payment platforms, and third-party processors are prepared. So banks should do the following: engage with vendors to confirm updated implementation timelines and system updates, conduct end-to-end testing to validate compliance and ensure seamless payment processing, and then leverage structured data to ensure fraud detection tools and strengthen AML monitoring. By addressing these areas early, banks can avoid last-minute implementation challenges and ensure their systems are ready well before the new deadline. Optimizing internal processes and staff training. Beyond technical readiness, banks should evaluate internal workflows and operational efficiencies. ISO's enhanced data structure allows for greater automation and more efficient processing, but these benefits will only be realized if staff are properly trained. So they should be looking for operations and compliance teams, should receive training on new message formats and reporting requirements, Internal workflows should be reviewed and refined to ensure smooth transaction processing. Testing scenarios should be developed to mimic real transactions, helping teams prepare for the transition. Taking the time now to optimize internal processes will reduce potential disruptions and improve efficiency when ISO goes live. Educating and supporting business customers. So ISO is not just a back-end change. It will impact how businesses process payments and reconcile accounts. Banks should take a proactive approach in helping commercial clients understand and prepare for these changes. So provide clear resources on how ISO will affect payment processing and reconciliation. Offer guidance on leveraging enriched payment data for improved reporting and reconciliation. And then finally, develop a structured transition plan to support business clients and minimize disruptions. So proactively educating and supporting customers will strengthen client relationships and position banks to be, once again, the trusted partner during this transition. So beyond compliance, the benefits of the ISO. So while meeting the regulatory deadline is essential, ISO offers broad operational advantages. It offers greater payment efficiency. It offers enhanced fraud detection. It offers better customer experience and future-proofing payments. So what are some of the next steps for banks? So with 4 additional months to prepare, CFI should focus on finalizing vendor coordination, enhancing customer education efforts, and refining internal processes and training. This transition is more than just a compliance requirement. It's a strategic step toward modernizing payment operations, increasing efficiency, and enhancing customer service. So CFIs that take action now will be well positioned for a seamless and successful implementation. So again, very interesting. So the deadline again for this ISO, basically the turn on date, if you will, is basically extended to July 14th of 2025. There's 4 extra months now to prepare for this. And again, I think there were some really good things in here, how banks can use the extended timeline, assessing system readiness and vendor coordination, optimize internal processes and staff training, educating and supporting business customers, and the benefits of ISO, and then basically what your next steps should be. So this is, again, really interesting topic, really interesting thing that's happening right now in the banking world. My big concern at the moment is just, are banks really ready for this implementation? Like I said, it's not like every bank in the country is using FedNow, and that FedNow is basically fully turned into like everything it can be. So, all right, so we'll have to see more on this topic. I'm sure I will be reporting more on this topic in the months ahead as we get closer and closer to this deadline. I'm sure the Federal Reserve will probably key in with the FedNow people making some comments on what's happening with this transition as well. So definitely more to come in the future on this. But I just thought this was a good opportunity to kind of introduce the topic and basically say, hey, what's going on? Why is it important? And why should banks be focusing on this at the moment? So, but with that being said, I will wrap up by saying, if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I love getting back to everybody. And as always, make sure to check out some of the other content on the channel. I hope everyone has a great day out there, and I will see you again real soon. Thanks a lot.